Welcome back to another episode of Pilates Elephants, and I'm here with Teneille Palmer. Welcome, Teneille.
Hi, Russ. How are you?
I'm awesome. Great to be with you. So we're here today to talk about your journey to building a home-based Pilates business in your garage. And so can you first start by introducing yourself to the Pilates stratosphere?
Yes. So I'm Teneille and mum of 3 kids. I've been teaching Pilates for not really that long in the Pilates world, so only since 2019. And I have a home studio with 6 reformers. Didn't always have 6 reformers, but we've now got 6. And keeping very, very busy at the moment with kids and a business. And my husband runs a business. So, yeah, that's pretty much me in a very quick nutshell.
Okay, so you've been teaching Pilates since 2019. You're based here in Melbourne, Australia. In fact, we're probably 30 kilometres apart from each other at the moment. But you didn't start running your own business when you first started teaching. So can you take me right back, please, to before you even started teaching Pilates, and just tell me how you fell in love with Pilates? Like, how did you make the decision to become a Pilates instructor?
Yeah, so I think my story is a little different to what others might be. I became a Pilates instructor before I fell in love with it. So an opportunity came knocking.
So it was an arranged marriage.
Yeah, I think so. It's a good way to put it. I was in the fitness industry only just briefly as well. So I was a baby in the fitness industry, and I was working at F45, which I loved, and I was one of those F45 junkies, went every day, twice a day, just loved the vibe, loved the group situation and the social. And I'd been doing that for only 12 months.
And sorry to interrupt, but F45 is a high-intensity circuit-based workout franchise here in Australia.
Yep, that's the one. So a friend of mine who had been working at a large franchise studio told me that they were looking for new staff, and I didn't think that, I didn't realise that you could teach Pilates not having had the certification, but she said, no, you can do it. You should apply. And that just, I thought, oh, that's cool. I'd done the intro a couple of years before that and I really liked it. But being situated where we are in Melbourne, it's still quite a distance. So it's not something I kept doing because of the drive. So, I thought, I'll send an email to the studio owners and we'll just see what happens. And, and I got it. So, so then I went through a 6-week pretty intense academy, and then next thing I was thrown into a room with 14 reformers, and it was kind of sink or swim, really.
And you must have swum.
I thought I was going to drown a couple of times, but just kept plugging away. It was quite an intense experience, yeah.
All right, and so how long were you teaching Pilates for before you started to, I'm assuming that you have fallen in love with Pilates because you've decided to really throw yourself into it, 100% at this point. You've repurposed your home, you've spent truckloads of money on 6 reformers, you're doing it as a full-time business. So am I correct in assuming that you actually are really into Pilates these days? Yeah.
It's everything. I don't really do any of that high intensity F45 anymore. It's Pilates every day for me now. So it's changed everything.
So how did that come about? You're one nostril above water, teaching these large reformer classes. 5 minutes after being certified. Tell me what happened next.
So I guess I always knew that I wanted to run something from home. So because I was new, and that's why I sort of got it. I've always loved fitness and been into it. And my husband has his own business, and I knew that I wanted to do something from home. to just complement the income that we already had and something that I could do working around the kids. And, there's a PT on every corner. So I felt like that wasn't quite it because of personal trainer, sorry. So I thought that wasn't quite it given where we're situated. So the town that we live in, we have a population of 400 people. So it has to be a drive to come see me or to run something from home. And if it wasn't a bit of a niche, I didn't feel like people would take the drive and come be my client, I suppose you might say. So when I sort of had the idea of, I could be a reformer Pilates instructor, I was like, this could be it. And I felt like it was a bit of a buzz at the time as well. So it seemed like a good qualification to get and something I could try out in that environment and learn a lot and then bring it home possibly. And it wasn't a solid plan, but it was something I thought, it's worth diving in and see where we go with it. And we brought one reformer and I had one reformer, and that's where I started.
Okay, tell me about how you started that, because you're on the outskirts of metropolitan Melbourne. So like technically you're in Melbourne, but basically it's a semi-rural area that you're in. Like there's horses and stuff, right, when you drive down the road near you. So how did you transition? Like you're going to get zero passing trade. You're not going to get people just walking past your shop front and going, "Oh, Pilates, I'll give it a go." So how did you attract client number one?
So client number one, I had a separate Instagram page from when I went through the academy, and I just thought I'd document starting Pilates and a bit of travel. It was a bit of a mixed batch, like travel and fitness and that kind of thing. So I had this little page, couple of hundred followers, and I just put on my stories, now taking one-on-one clients for reformer Pilates. And I had someone respond, and I didn't know her. She knew of some same friends of ours, but I didn't know her, wasn't a friend, no family members. And she responded to my little story on Instagram, and we made a time, and she came, and she's been coming every week ever since. So that would have been in mid-2020, so it was in between lockdowns too. So that was my first client. Yeah.
I get a lot of DMs from people, and we often have discussions about business. And one of the things that I very commonly hear is some version of, I live in a kind of a small town in whatever country, and there's only a couple of thousand people in this town, or it's not a big kind of wealthy inner urban, posh suburb or anything. So therefore the people near me, don't know what Pilates is, and there's not a lot of Pilates studios around here. And so it's like they don't see the value, they can't afford to pay for it. There's not enough clients. And I think, some of the time that is true. Right. If you're trying to sell Pilates in, I don't know, the middle of Nigeria or something I imagine it's probably going to be pretty hard. But I think by and large, if you live in an industrialized economy, there's always opportunity. And so I feel like a lot of times that is a self-limiting belief that people have about that stops people from opening a business, or stops people from effectively promoting their business, or from charging as much as they should or could charge, because they have this belief that they can't because of the size of the location they're in, or the type of people who live near them, or the lack of other competition around them. So I'd like to understand your mindset, because from the way that you described it there, it didn't seem to me like you had a whole lot of kind of self-doubt, or, did you have naysayers? Did people tell you were crazy? Did you have doubts? How did you navigate that?
I didn't really I didn't have much self-doubt about it. And I just thought, because I didn't have a solid plan, like, I'm going to have this big studio. There wasn't these big wild dreams about it. It was just like, if I could get a couple of one-on-ones in my home, then that's great. Like that's a bit of extra income and that'd be nice. And it keeps me busy, and I like to work even though I've got the kids. Like I want to keep, doing something for me and developing my skills. So I guess if I'd never got an answer to that little story on Instagram, I would have felt a bit deflated, but I probably would have kept trying and someone would have come eventually. But I guess like in terms of my friends, I had one of my close girlfriends who is also a personal trainer, and she'd never been on a reformer, absolutely petrified to go to a studio, and she was a personal trainer. I was like, no, it'll be fine. And so we did a little one-on-one, and she really loved it, and she's like, you should do this, like, because she was running some one-on-ones from her garage personal training, and yeah, she goes, you should do it. I'm going to tell all my clients to come to you. But living where she lives and where her clients were, that I had one of her clients that did come for a really long time. But other than that, yeah. And my husband's always been very supportive. He was like, yeah, you should do it, and buy the reformer and just give it a whirl. And I suppose in terms of where we live, to me, I feel like there's still enough around us. Everything's a 10-minute drive, and anyone who lives around here knows that you're going to drive minimum 10 minutes to go shopping, to go to the gym, that kind of thing. But reformer Pilates was still a good 30-minute drive. So that puts people off, especially if you want to continue. And I think I just wanted to offer it to this little pocket of our community, because we sort of live just out of metro. So you can get to places, but it's a bit of an inconvenience. So I wanted it to be more convenient and available to more people.
All right, so I want to ask you that question, the follow-up question of like, when did your ambitions start to grow and change, and when did you start to think, oh, maybe I could whack in 2 more reformers or 4 more reformers or 6 more reformers or whatever. So I want to go there in a minute, but firstly, I want to ask you, like, well, in fact, no, let's go there first. So you started out with this, one reformer, one client, just some random person off Instagram. At what point did you start to think, oh, I could be onto something here? Like, when did your ambitions expand?
Well, I think I had about 4 or 5 one-on-ones every week. And I was still working in the studio as well. So I was working a whole shift and then having to fly home and quickly jump in my studio and try and see my one-on-one clients. And it was really fulfilling. And I just felt like I was building a really good, I guess, you build a good relationship with what felt like my clients. Whereas when I was in this big studio, they didn't feel like they were my clients. They were just coming and going. It was a dual studio, so there was always 2 instructors to choose from. It's busy, and it just didn't have, I guess for me, self-fulfilling. It was better. I enjoyed my time at home with the new clients that I had. And I guess I was just starting to get really busy, and I would post stuff with my clients' permission on Instagram, photos of them, and just they would share it on their page and they would tell their friends, and then I was getting more people message me about it. So I just thought this could be a thing, and I had the reformer in my husband's office, and so I was kicking him out of his office when I had a client, so he couldn't work because I was the reformer. And once I was getting a bit busy, he got completely kicked out because I wanted to clean it up because it was all cluttered and messy. And I guess that's when we knew this is going to be a thing. Let's just turn it into a thing. So I resigned where I was and got the second reformer, which was a really big deal. Like, it felt like such a big deal at the time. Like, oh my God, 2 reformers, I've got to make this work. And as soon as I got the 2 reformers, that's when I knew this is the best decision that I've made.
All right, I want to go back and just remark on something that I think is I'm not sure if you did it on purpose or if you just kind of stumbled on it or whatever, but it's actually a really effective strategy in goal setting and behavior change to kind of like almost trick yourself by setting a really low goal to begin with and going, oh, look, I'll just go on this diet for one day. Like in the back of your mind, it's going to be a lifelong thing, right? But you say, look, I'll just do it. I'll just go for a walk for 10 minutes, whereas, you've got to walk for an hour a day, right? But that's kind of what you did. You said, look, I'll just whack a reform in my husband's office and I'll just take one or two clients here and there just to get some pocket money and have some fun and keep myself occupied. But really it's like, by doing that, you kind of took a lot of pressure off yourself, and it didn't make it a big thing, and made it really an easy goal with no pressure. And you kind of tricked yourself into kind of starting it without really giving it a second thought, because it wasn't this big thing you were getting into. It was just kind of like a little hobby that you were contemplating.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Good self-psychology there.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
All right, and so when you and so I think that's a I think that is a rule of thumb that I use in my business, and we're just past 4.5 million this year, and we still use that same rule of thumb that you just articulated. Basically, when to grow, like when to buy another reformer, or when to renovate the garage, or when to whatever. For us, it's like when to hire another team member, when to spend more on ads, when to, implement a new system or whatever. And the answer is like when that is the biggest constraint, right? So when your biggest constraint is like, well, if I had another reformer, I could fill it, right? Or if I had this room full time, I could take twice as many clients because I've got people knocking on my door wanting to do it. That's when it's time to make that expansion. So it sounds like, I'm not sure by intent or design or blind luck or good fortune or whatever, you've done it. You've done it brilliantly. I think you've played your cards exactly right.
Yeah. And I think, it did. You could just feel it every time. So even when I had the 2 reformers going for about, I think it was only like 2 or 3 months, and I was like, I need a third one. And this room that I was in, I could fit one more in. It was a squeeze, but I could get it in there. And because I found once I went from 1 reformer to 2 or 3, people wanted to come more because they could bring a friend, because everyone's scared to come on their own. So as soon as they can bring a friend, it was on, and the messages, and I couldn't keep up. And my school of thought originally was like, well, if I can get another one in, I can see more clients in the same amount of time rather than, it's more hours of work. Busy mum, we've got another business. I work in that business, and, you're juggling all the balls. So I was like, I want to work as small amount of hours with the maximum clients. So and then the 3 was the max in that particular room that I was in.
And did you play Tetris in that room with the reformers and try and switch them around different ways and see how many you could squeeze in?
Yeah, it was a funny shaped room, and so the 2 first reformers had a better space, and then the next one, the third one I put in, you couldn't do pull ups on the pulley arms when you're facing reverse, because you just hit your head on the wall.
And so that was just like a spare bedroom, right, in your house?
No, well, it wasn't actually. So it's in our garage, and it was purpose built as my husband's office. So when we moved here, he used to actually run he's a plumber. He ran his plumbing business from our garage many years ago, and we purpose built the office attached to the garage. So we had all the tools and everything, and then the office in there. And our other business since moved out, but he was still in there with his office. And now he's out too.
Okay. And it sounds like you had already some skills and experience in running a business, because from the sounds of things, you'd work with your husband in the plumbing business. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. Although I don't really have much to do with the face value or anything of our plumbing business. He does all the liaising with the builders and that kind of thing. I'm just sort of taught myself how to bookkeep and pay employees and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
When it started growing, you're going from 1 reformer to 2 reformers to 3 reformers. Where are all these extra clients coming from?
Well, they were coming from about 10 minutes down the road in a little town called Bunyip, significantly bigger than the town we live in. We're small, there's nothing here. They're about 10 minutes drive, and it was funny because
sorry. I articulated my question very poorly. What I meant was, how did you attract those clients? Like, how did you market and, acquire those clients? How did they know you existed?
Social media. That's the only thing I really did. I would, with their permission again, I would tag them in my stories and they would share with their friends. They were obviously enjoying it and then talking to their friends. So it was either social media, people would just DM me and inquire, or they've got word of mouth from the people who are already coming. And that was the bread and butter of it, really.
Right. So you just take a photo of them working out and then just post it on Instagram and tag them.
And I guess the other thing, and just, any availability that I had, if there was a spare spot, I was, who wants to, just a little on the stories, a little bit on the page. But just saying that I had free spots and people would just DM me and want to try it out.
And how many social media followers did you have at that point, roughly?
Probably about, only a couple of hundred. Would have been 400 or 500. Maybe.
Wow. Way to leverage your follower count.
Yeah.
All right. So how did your have you switched now, because at the start you were very much just kind of going with the flow by the sounds of things, right? It was completely organic. But my sense is, from what you've said, that at some point you've kind of switched and gone, hold on, I think I'm onto something here. And you've actually sat down and maybe, I don't know if you sat down, but it seems to me like from what you've done and what you've said that you've got a much more goal-oriented sort of strategy at the moment. Like you've rebuilt the garage, you've got 6 reformers, like you've got an actual business now, like a legit business. So, did it change at some point from being like very, very organic kind of growth to just kind of like intentionally growing the business? And if so, can you describe that process?
So I guess the light bulb moment and would probably be in the lockdown. Lockdown's got a lot to do with it. I had a lot of time to think, I suppose. My little 3-bed studio was closed down. And I was just starting to really, gain that traction and build connection with the clients that I had. And it was just it was a bit devastating. I was really upset. And then to be at home and not really be able to connect with them. They didn't have reformers at home. So I put so I was like, I'll offer, mat Pilates on Zoom. And every week, it was just once a week, just to sort of keep some connection. And I did have one client who had a reformer at home, who was the first client that I ever had. So I said, well, we can keep doing one-on-ones once a week. And then once some of the other clients got wind of that, they all went and bought reformers in lockdown in 2021. And so they were all calling Dean at the Pilates Solution going, Teneille sent me. So shout out to Dean. He kept getting all of these clients that he had to deliver out to regional areas and deliver reformers. It was a bit funny. I was having a giggle, but they were so invested that we had about, I think there was a group of about 8 or 9 clients, and we would meet up 3 times a week for a Pilates class. And we just built this real tight little community through lockdown, and I was still offering the once a week mat. And it was during that time, I kept having the conversations with my husband, like, I think I want more reformers, and I think I want to make this a bit bigger, because I can just feel it. There's a feeling. I don't know. It's just a feeling. And I think it was about August or September. And I remember we were going to come out of lockdown, but we didn't. And I was like, it's now or never. Like, we've got to do it. I don't want to have to then stop once we reopen. So we, totally renovated what we had left of the garage. We left the room that was the office and the original studio, gutted the garage, and everything that was in the garage went into a shipping container on the front yard. And in about 5 weeks, we had a brand new studio and 3 more reformers delivered. So there was a moment in lockdown where I was like, I've got to do it now or it won't happen. So we did it.
How do you build that tight community? Because it seems that that community was a crucial element of your business success, especially in that early phase. People, you said they brought their friends, they tagged them on socials, they were like, and then their friends inquired with you. And you know, what really struck me was when you said that basically half a dozen of your clients just went out and bought a reformer, which is, you know, really freaking expensive, you know, and it's like, where the heck do you put a reformer in your house? Like, you know, so that is a major level of commitment. Those people are dedicated to their workout. So how did you build that level of community and dedication?
Well, I guess before we were in the lockdown, you know, you just got to build that alliance with them and build the relationship and be their friend. So, you know, often you can't get them out the door after their session because you're just busy talking all the time. When you're like, oh no, my next client's coming, and you can't get them out the door. But you enjoy the conversation as well, you know. But I guess just you got to be friends with your clients and be interested in their lives. I'm also, what I haven't mentioned is I've got we've got child-friendly classes, so I've always had kids in the studio as well. So I think that's a big bonus as well, as I get to know their kids, and I don't know, there's just lots to talk about. So I guess that sense of, oh, you know, Teneille cares about me and I'm enjoying the workout. And then in lockdown, I guess over a screen, everyone's stuck at home, and you'd finish your session on Zoom, and then everyone would hang around for a chat for 20 minutes on Zoom. So I feel like, that's where it really started to build.
And to what extent are your clients basically you? Like, I mean, you know, kind of young mums living in, you know, semi-rural area, you know, like, are you your market?
Yep. Yep. I would say, majority of them are initially were, you know, same as me, similar age kids. We all live in the same area. So, you know, you've got a lot in common. Everyone knows everyone too. So, you know, they walk into the studio and it's like, oh, you go here too. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's friends. So it's really good. And you don't have to introduce people because they already know each other.
I'm sorry, I can totally imagine how that would play out outside the studio as well, where those people would meet at coffee or the library with their kids or mother's group or whatever, and they'd be like, oh, so-and-so, you know, was down at Pilates the other day and I ran into her, and you could see how other people then in that situation would be like, oh, maybe I want to come to Pilates as well.
Yeah. So I think that's what happens behind the scenes. I don't see all that, but everyone, and my clients will give me the feedback like, oh, everybody knows about you. The lady in Tyno, like, who teaches Pilates, you know. So there's lots of talk behind the scenes that I'm not aware of, and but it brings the people to the studio. So I do have a lot of other clients. You know, I've got a lot of younger people. Well, younger, they're probably like late 20s, still career driven, no kids, that kind of thing, and they come quite regularly. And then I do have some older ladies as well. So there is a bit of a mix, but I would say majority is, you know, your mums with young kids living in this rural area.
Give me a sense of where your business is at the moment. So you've got 6 reformers in your garage, which was a double car garage. Now, how I'm assuming that you have squeezed in as many as you physically can into that space. Is that true?
Yeah. So, it's not a real squeeze, but I've dabbled with the idea of trying to get a 7th one in there, but as I've moved them around, and it's quite a workout moving 6 reformers around and then putting them back just to see if you can fit one. I possibly could, but I just feel it would be too much. It would be too much. There'd be so many exercises that I love teaching that I couldn't teach. But I could have, where we had the old reformers, that's now the kids area. So potentially I could have more room, but then I wouldn't be able to run the child-friendly classes, and that's that's my market, and now I guess it is my target market as well because it works so well. So possibly there could be a 7th, but it just doesn't feel quite right to me if I just squeeze it in there just for one reformer. But
and so how close are the reformers? Like, are there any exercises that you currently can't do, like say legs circles, legs in straps, or side lying legs in straps, or anything like that?
Yeah, so the legs in straps, sometimes a bit of footsies happen, but I move them. They get shuffled around, they jump down to the end of the wall, and you just got to reshuffle them so they're not parallel with each. Well, they're parallel, but they're one's further closer to the wall, and they're offset. That's the word. But if the reformers have been jumping around that day, you get to your next class and, they touch toes or something, and it's a little bit awkward if they don't know each other. But we always have the joke. I'm like, yeah.
If you just had to give me like a rough estimate of how far apart they are, like if I put a measuring tape between the rail of one reformer and the rail of the next reformer, how far would it be, do you reckon?
So it would be like your short box. So when you turn the box short ways, landscape.
So like 50 centimetres, right?
Yeah. Yeah, about that.
Great. And how many sessions do you run each week?
So at the moment we're at about 25.
And are you teaching all of those?
No, not anymore. Well, I guess I never really did. I've got Georgia who works for me, so she teaches 8 to 10 sessions a week, and I've got Jade, who is actually one of my first clients. Hers is more the stereotypical story. She fell in love with it, became a Pilates instructor.
So how many sessions do you personally teach each week?
So it's a bit alternating with the Saturdays and that kind of thing, but yeah, somewhere around between 14 to 18 a week.
And so how many hours in total do you personally work? Because I'm assuming there's admin and stuff like that.
I said this to my husband the other day. I'm like, I should just clock on and off every time I stop and like get caught up with the business, because I feel like it's just little bits through the day, and then it'll be an hour here, and then I'll do something else, and then I'll get an email from a client or a message. But there's definitely a lot of hours behind the scene. I would say I could easily fill a day with behind the scenes stuff, but you kind of have to scatter it throughout the week.
Right. So when you say fill a day, you mean like one full day, like 8 hours a week?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel like there'd definitely be 8 hours behind the scenes.
Okay, so if you're teaching 14 to 18 sessions a week and you're working 8 hours, you're working, roughly 20 to 25 hours a week, something like that?
Yeah, yep, that sounds fair.
And how are you doing financially? What's the revenue like, or how much are you taking out of the business at the moment?
So it's pretty good. I'm in a unique, you could call it lucky, but I was in a situation where I didn't have to work. So for me, it wasn't about how much I could take from the business and keep, and it was more just supplementary income. So we're at a point now, I've just had a meeting with the accountant where we're going to have to charge GST, which I'm not keen on that, but at the same time, do I let it grow, or do you just keep it in its little neat bubble? It's one of those.
Right. And that means you're about to hit $70,000 in revenue here in Australia. That's where you've got to add GST.
Yeah, so that's about where we're at, yeah.
And how long have you been going? How long since you put in the 6 reformers?
So the 6 reformers was November 2021. We had our reopening day with the new renovated studio in the November of 21, just after we came out of that lockdown.
So that is 1 year and 3 months. That's 15 months.
Yep, that's it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What an amazing achievement. You've built an amazing little business.
Yeah, no, it's been crazy, but good.
So it sounds, my sense of you, Teneille, is you don't really have a problem with sort of like negative self-talk or just lack of self-confidence. Like, just from your actions, you've just kind of like gone ahead and just done stuff. You don't seem like you hesitate too much before you pull the trigger and move forward with things. So is that true? And if so, like, and I know I kind of asked you this before, but like, as the business has grown and you've become more focused on it, like, at any point have you? Well, first, I guess, question I want to ask is like, yeah, is that true? You know, how's your confidence, and have you had any challenges in sort of like the self-belief area, or, you know, do you have any advice for others who are maybe suffering from paralysis by analysis, you know, wanting to get started?
Yeah, I am kind of lucky in that I've always been that way. If I want to try something, I'll just try it. I guess you can worry about what other people think, but at the end of the day, it's, you know, it's what you think about yourself. And I just think you can't compare yourself to other people either. As the business has grown, it is really easy. A lot of other little home studios have popped up around, which, you know, you do start to look and go, oh, what are they doing? And, you know, you got to sometimes just put your blinkers on with that kind of stuff, just because that's what will kill it. Because if you start to doubt yourself and I guess, you know, I've got it now that I've come where I'm at, I can look back and go, I've done something right. And what's worked and I've got to just keep moving forward with what I know has already worked and the clients that I have, you know. And I've listened to enough Pilates Elephants episodes, you know, there's enough clients for everyone, and there's, you know, I'm in a tiny little town and I've managed to do this anyway. So you can't worry too much that everybody's a competitor. They're not. They're probably more your friend, and they're probably experiencing the same things you are. And I think it's the people who have done what you want to do, they're the ones, and the ones that will share with you, they're gold. And the ones that are happy to give you advice and it's not going to benefit them, reach out to those people. There's lots of people on Instagram that I've only met on Instagram. So, well, actually, no, I have met Laura Sagers once. We did a Pilates class together, but, you know, I've had many DMs with her. Beck Tropic. I don't even know Beck's surname. I just know she's Beck Tropic. That's what Heath calls her. You know, and reaching out to those kind of people, and they give you the confidence. Yeah, you know, you can ask a few questions, and I've found, just reaching out to, all of the community that's out there. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't see everyone as your competitor. See them as someone who can help you in your journey, and everyone can help each other. Rather than, I think, that's pretty much it. I think I'm babbling now.
Yeah. What great advice. And you are doing that right now by sharing candidly your experiences, and, you know, hopefully this will be an inspiration and, you know, useful information for people out there contemplating something similar. I want to keep keep talking about the advice side of things, and I 100% agree with you that finding somebody who's already done what you want to do and then asking them, you know, for advice is a fantastic strategy. But presumably you haven't always agreed with all of the advice that you've received. So what's your strategy for passing, you know, for basically filtering that advice and going, okay, I'm going to accept this bit of advice and reject that bit of advice, etc.? Like, how do you filter?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess I know my clients and my studio better than anyone. So you've got to sort of know what fits and what doesn't fit. And I know that I could have kept the studio smaller and had more one-on-one, two-on-one interaction with people. But me personally, I love a group vibe. I like to get the music pumping and have a bit of a Pilates party. So when I was kind of weighing up, do I make it bigger or do I make it smaller? And, there were I could see the benefits in keeping it smaller and more boutique or personalized. But I knew what I enjoyed and what really got me going as an instructor and what made me enjoy it more. And like you said, like me is my market. So if I'm enjoying it, then the people who are going to come to me are probably going to enjoy it too. So filtering out, just what fits.
What about your clients? Because I imagine, maybe I'm off track here, but I imagine that as you grew from 1 reformer to 2 to 3 to 6, etc., there must have been some resistance from some of your clients who felt it was becoming less intimate, less personal. It's like, we'll be inundated with thousands of people in these sessions. I won't be able to do my leg circles anymore. Did you have any of that resistance? And if so, how did you manage through that?
Yeah, that's funny. I don't feel like I had a lot of resistance. Just off the top of my head, I can only think of like 3 who didn't come back, and we had a few conversations. But it wasn't. Look, they didn't say that directly. But it didn't feel like it wasn't big enough for me to go, oh wow, I'm making the wrong decision. One of them, they tried it in the new studio and they haven't returned, but I've bumped into them down, at the supermarket or whatever. We have a good chat and, I've got to come back. So whether they're just saying that or not. But 3, it's not going to be for everyone, the group vibe. And if you're wanting something personalized, and I understand that as well. But I would say the majority were really excited for a studio with more reformers. They keep asking, like, when are you moving? When are you going to make it bigger? Like,
so what about just feedback in general from clients? Like, how do you filter that? Because it's feedback incredibly valuable, and you can make your business so much better by accepting feedback. But it's been my experience that sometimes, like, you'll get feedback that's opposite. So some people will say, we want more of this, and other people say we want less of this, and it's like, okay, well, you can't always act on every piece of feedback that you receive, because you'll go running from pillar to post, and so you have to make decisions and kind of contextualize the feedback. So how do you decide what feedback to act on? Like, what's gospel to you, feedback wise, and when do you just go, you know what, we're not going to do anything about that?
Yeah. So yeah. Sometimes you have weeks where they're like, I don't want to do jump boards. Oh well, sorry, that's not. You don't get to choose what we're going to do in class. The instructors choose that. But in terms of feedback, look, I get a lot of maybe it's a bit of bias, because the people who have not their biggest feedback, not the best feedback, they probably don't say it out loud, so I don't hear it as much. And I do text everyone, and maybe it's how I word it and things. This is where I'm constantly trying to be better at what I'm doing, is leaving those conversations open to hear some of the stuff that maybe clients don't tell me straight off the bat. So I would like to sometimes hear a little bit more of that. I had something else I was going to say. I've lost my chain of thought. But feedback, I've lost my chain of thought. I had something else I was going to add to that. Sorry, Raf.
That's all right. We can come back to it in a sec. I want to know, like, your life, must be a little different, or considerably different now, I imagine, since before, when you were teaching F45, and then even when you were teaching Pilates in someone else's studio. It must be very, very different now. So what are the best things about owning a home-based business, and how is your life different now than what it was, a couple of years ago before you started on this journey?
Yeah, so it's changed a lot. The best parts for me, working from home and having the studio at home, is being able to be there for the kids. and not relying on my husband to have to be home from work so that I can go do my shift at another studio. So, when I work a Monday night, say, I'll duck in between classes and make sure that they've brushed their teeth and, and they've done their homework, and then I'll rush back out to the studio. And so it allows me to be a little bit more flexible with the kids and our other business. It allows me to work more. If I was just in a studio, it was really hard for me to commit. Like, I wanted to be there, but it was really hard to commit to a lot of hours. So that's good. And, if my kids have got something on at school, I can shuffle things around if I need to. So I guess the flexibility is one of the best parts of being at home and having my own business. And sorry, what was the other part of that question?
And well, no, you've pretty much answered it. So the next question I want to ask you is, how have you grown in this process?
I'm definitely more confident in my teaching ability and working with clients of all different types, body types, fitness. I used to like freak out if I had someone come in who'd never been on a reformer before, very unconditioned, and then I had a room full of, experienced clients. That was really hard to manage. I found when I was, especially in a bigger studio, when you've got a much larger amount room to keep an eye on. So now I find that if I run mixed ability classes, so you can have a brand new client and then someone who's intermediate, and I find that I'm just really, I don't even think twice anymore, whereas I used to worry about it. So I guess my growth as a teacher has come a long way. But that's also thanks to Breathe Education as well. So just a little plug as well. So, because since then I did my cert, and I'm doing the diploma at the moment, so that helps.
And so, well, I was going to ask you, so what caused your confidence to grow? And I was expecting you to say something like, well, you've just done like bazillions of classes and you just got over it.
Yes, yeah, well, that too.
And so you've got 3 kids, 2 businesses, you teach 15 classes a week, you have 2 employees in this business, and you mentioned employees in the other business as well, and you've completed the certification in Pilates, and now you're currently doing the diploma. Like, where do you find the time?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a juggle. I'm not going to lie. I'm like what's the saying? Like a duck with the legs under the water. I look like I'm moving really smoothly on the top, but it's just like I'm just going at 100 miles an hour underneath. It's chaos. It's chaos.
Is there anything now? There was something that escaped you a minute ago. Has it popped back into your mind at any point?
Oh no, sorry, no, it hasn't.
No, it's gone for good. So, I'd just like to ask, like, finally, is there anything else that you'd like to share? Like, if you're talking now to somebody, like yourself, who has, is maybe a Pilates teacher, or maybe they're not yet a Pilates teacher, but this is something that they dream of or they're contemplating. Like what would you like to say to that person starting, that's they're contemplating, starting a home business, doing basically what you're doing? What would you say to that person?
I guess the first thing is, like I said earlier, is you just give it a go. Just put yourself out there, because you won't know unless if you don't try. And it could go either way, but it's probably, if you're committed to something like that and you want to do it, you'll make it happen. It's almost like the old, if there's a will, there's a way. And I guess you've got to be prepared to work hard. Like, I guess from the outset, it could look like it's just all happened and it's just all come together for me. But there's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes. So I guess even though I work from home and it's around my kids, it's probably a lot more work and a lot harder now than I thought it was going to be. So you got to be prepared to put in the time and the effort. It's not just going to all fall on your lap. And if that means getting uncomfortable and meeting new people and asking for advice when you think you need it, or even just absorb as much information as you possibly can. Often I'm not one to just ask lots of questions, but I'll listen to hours and hours of podcasts and I'll just absorb everything, and I'll listen to that podcast twice or 3 times because I just keep absorbing until it feels like, it's sunk in. Like, you just got to be, prepared to learn and just learn and just get all the information that you can. And then, you keep some and you throw some away, and you do what feels right. You sort of go with that gut feeling, I think.
Teneille, this has been a great conversation, and I look forward to our next one and finding out where you take this next.
Awesome. Thank you, Raf. It's been a pleasure. It's almost like a starstruck moment. I'm an avid Pilates Elephants listener, so to be on here is like next level.